Half a truth is often a great lie. Donald Trump.
Yeah, that's right.
I've told some interesting stories in my time. My kids actually, I probably are sick of them because they never know when I'm telling the truth or when I'm pulling their leg. I've thwarted them many times because they're like, oh. And it's not just my family that I punish with this. I punish everybody. I'm an equal opportunity punisher. It's very punny, right? I have had the opportunity over the years to tell a lot of tales to the Boy Scouts. And I've always believed that every good story, which is usually false, always has an element of truth in it. And it's not always that it's real truth, it could be half a truth. It could just be simply something that makes sense. And that's what happened on this camp out. We left to go to a huge camporee. This was something that was being put on not only by the Boy Scouts, but also by the Girl Scouts. There were Boy Scouts, there were adventure crews, so you're talking kids up to 21. There were little daisies and brownies and all the other Girl Scout ages. Everybody was here. You had all sorts of age groups. We had activities that were going to be going on during the day and into the night. It was going to be fantastic. This was at a facility that we had never been to before. This was a campground out in the middle of nowhere, up off of State Road 44. So this is up in like Hernando County area. And we drove up, and when you get to the entrance, you come off of what's pretty much a 4-lane country road, or kind of a state road, but it's still in the middle of nowhere, 44, onto a little 2-lane road. And there's trees on both sides, so you don't know where you're at. And you come to a little opening on the side of the road, and you turn in, and there are these 2 mammoth stone pillars. And above it, in wood and metal, it says McGregor-Smith. The kids were like, what is this place? My son's sitting next to me, my senior patrol leader Steven's in the back seat. They're like, you sure this is the place? This looks kind of weird. I'm like, no. I'm like, this is it. I'm like, and as we drive in, you don't see anything. There's open pasture land, there's trees, and eventually you come to a typical low barbed wire fence like you would see on ranch land. And there's the little cattle stops in the road, the little bars to get cows to keep from going across. These are city kids. They don't know what this stuff is. They're like, what is this for? I'm like, you guys have never heard of Doctors McGregor and Smith? They're like, no, who's that? Oh, they're famous. They're a psychologist and a psychiatrist. They envisioned using the whole back to nature approach that Boy Scouts have and working together and going camping to try and rehabilitate the criminally insane. It made perfect sense. It gets these people to work together. It gets them to work as teams. It gets them out in nature, because who doesn't feel happier when they're out in nature with an axe in their hand, but the criminally insane? Actually, that part I didn't tell them. I sort of embellished there. But this is how the story went. And they stopped and paused, which that's the best time to keep on going, because you don't want to give them too much time to think. So I immediately said, well, this was a while ago, so maybe that's why you don't know about it. But things happened. There were a few accidents, a few deaths, a few disappearances, and so they figured they had to close the place down. So it's been sitting empty for quite a while, but there hasn't been any activity in a while, so they figured it was safe to reuse. And hey, it's set up like a scout camp, so why not let the scouts use it? And the council figured, great idea, we can hold this big jamboree, this big camporee, as a kickoff to using this property. And they're like, yeah, but I'm like, oh no, we'll be fine. I said, look, Boy Scouts teaches the buddy system. It's you never go anywhere alone. You always have a buddy. As a matter of fact, when there's adults involved, we have what's called 2 deep leadership. You always have 2 adults, 2 scouts. So that way, everybody's safe. Everybody knows what's going on. So we get to the campsite. It's crowded. There's people everywhere. Finally, we find people. We finally get to our campsite, drop the trailer off. I've got to go park. Everybody's crowded around. And I get back to the campsite, and boys are setting up tents. And I hear my son and the senior patrol leader talking to the other boys. Did you hear what Nick's dad said? They're like, no, what? And I'm just like sort of giggling or whatever. So I go and start setting up my tent. Everybody's finally set up. And the whole night long, all I keep hearing is these little whispers. What about this? What about that? And we're supposed to be going down to the opening night event. Big campfire, big stage. Everybody's going to put on activities. And a couple of the boys asked me, so what you told Nick and Steven, was that true? I'm like, you'll be fine. Just remember the buddy system. If you gotta go out, if you have to get up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, just take somebody with you. Take your flashlight, don't walk too far, you'll be fine. Okay. Everybody makes it through the night fine, of course. The next day, we've got so much stuff going on. They actually have a pool on the property that they fixed up for the event. So there's going to be stuff with showing how to do rolls and kayaks. We were putting on an event, I can't remember what it was called. I think it was called something weird like the Dutch Waddle. It's basically you lash together an A-frame using poles, and then you use ropes. And the idea is you get somebody to stand on it, and then everybody uses poles or ropes to balance the poles, and then to walk the A-frame. Oh, wow. So that was our challenge. So we had all sorts of stuff. There was knots and lashings, fire starting. There's all sorts of activities going on. Everybody was so busy they didn't have time to think about it. Until it got to lunchtime. And by this point, everybody's talked about it. It's daylight. Everybody's feeling much more confident. And there were still some boys that were quite on the edge, and they wanted to hear from the source. So we're underneath this huge pavilion. There's tables everywhere. Different Boy Scout troops, Girl Scout packs, or whatever they're called, are all over the place. Excuse me, all over the place. So one of the boys asked, Mr. Novotny, can you tell everybody the story? Because not everybody's believing us. And so I reiterated the whole thing about McGregor and Smith, psychologists, psychiatrists, rehabilitating the criminally insane. And now that it's daytime, and now that there's people all over the place, blue skies, it's sunny, they're like, yeah, right. And that's when I get a tap on the shoulder.
Oh, no.
And I turn my head, and there's a Girl Scout leader. I'm like, can I help you? And she said, that story wasn't true, was it? And then I look over at her table, and there's a dozen little girls that are all like, and I figured before the waterworks started happening, I'm like, okay, I've got to call it quits on this one. I think maybe I've taken it a little too far. I'm like, no, it was just a joke. But I thought it was hilarious. Thank you very much.